Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. And you know my name and stuff. I ain't got to go through that right now. We're doing something a little bit different. We're going to do a concert diary series. Actually, Sean, I don't know if it's going to be a concert diary series. We're going to do a concert diary and perhaps turn that into a series.
Maybe. We'll see how many more concerts you and I go to, or you go to in general.
Yeah, well, as of right now, our ability to do this is depending upon our buying these tickets, which is to say, don't you think that the idea of me going to your concert and saying good things about it, don't you think that might make some people buy some tickets? I'm not going to lie to you. I have that effect on people. You ought to consider it, right? Anyway, this time I spent my own hard-earned money and got tickets to go see Anderson .Paak at the Hollywood Bowl. I went with my buddy Sean, my buddy Clarence, my guy Jay Snow. This t-shirt, by the way, is not from this show. This is from the 2019 tour. So this is the second time that I've seen him as a headline act. I saw him at Madison Square Garden then, which is interesting because it allows you to like get that opportunity, right, to go track this. And I think you said you've seen him a few times, right?
So I've seen him on the festival circuit twice, and this was Venice, Malibu kind of period, and he's with the same band, but we'll talk about this later. But for us, seeing the growth of an artist that we both, I think, admire was one of the best parts of that experience.
Right. So for me, there were two things that were familiar about the show, and one thing that was familiar, one thing that was not, both of them being familiar to you. The thing that was familiar, of course, is this is a Malibu tour. So it's one of those where the artist does the album and then you get some more stuff after that, right? Because, I mean, you ain't charging that much money for a 45-minute show necessarily, though these tickets are surprisingly inexpensive relative to the rest of the world. Anyway, the part that was unfamiliar for me, that was familiar to Sean, that I feel like I want to start talking about is it was at the Hollywood Bowl, which I now believe is quite possibly the greatest venue in the world. I could not believe how dope that venue was. Sean, I'm not accustomed to getting seats with so much space between me and the headliner performer, but that's how it worked out. Like, we were, what, probably like third, fourth level?
Yeah.
But dead center.
Yeah, we were dead center. We were, there's, you know, an F section, which is kind of a little more pricey, but it is in that same middle. And then the front is the garden seats.
Right.
And the actual, like, standing room only. But again, like, if you're center of the bowl, the sound is going to be amazing.
Yes.
The sound echoes, and you were just at Red Rocks, and you Forest Hills, you were just at a concert. And sometimes the outdoor venues, we talked about this, like there's always a little too much echo,
right?
Or you might not catch the right pocket,
right?
But with the bowl, I think as long as you're in the middle, like the sound was perfect.
Yes, the sound was perfect, and for me, it was an opportunity to appreciate a concert, honestly, in the way that a concert is intended to be appreciated, which is to say, with a view of all the screens and all the lights and everything else, right? So I'm taking this show in as the full visual experience as intended. Now, he did Malibu. For my money, I can't think of an album I've enjoyed more than Malibu since Malibu came out, and that is 8 years ago. That's me. It ain't got to be everybody else. I will say this, though. As the music for Malibu started playing, I quickly found out Sean Yu is a big Malibu fan in a way that I did not quite recognize. I'm looking over. Sean knows every word. Sean's pumping his fist. Sean is in the zone in this in a way that made me smile so much, because there's nothing worse than going to a concert with an uninvested party. No, baby. Sean, this meant to Sean what it meant to me.
So I want to tell a quick story, and then we could talk about the whole concert itself. But when you asked me about the show and you sent me the link, like Malibu Hollywood Bowl, I was like, whoa, this is my shit. Like Malibu, and we talked about our love for Malibu, but this is oddly a weird full circle moment for me specifically, because there was a point in my career, this is like to make a podcast on my own. And it was just covering things I like, music, movies, whatever. I'm in my mom's closet because I'm back living at home recording this podcast. One of the first episodes I recorded was a deep dive on Anderson .Paak, the artist, and this album Malibu. And generally what it meant to me, what it meant to my ears. And a big portion of that is he's Korean American. He's half Korean, half black, and, raised by a single mother. I the same. And so this album meant a lot to me, and I really covered it as much as I could. And so getting your text and then actually going to the show was a weird full circle moment of like, hey, I made my own podcast, and now look, I'm doing a podcast with Bomani Jones, and we go to this show that clearly this album meant a lot to both of us.
Right.
When you told me that at the show, that it was this is the best album that you've listened to in the last 8 years, that's a crazy statement to make.
It is. It is, but there's nothing that gets it for
Yeah,
me, right?
yeah.
And then it's so interesting to hear you talk about that full circleness of it, because the show itself, a big theme of it was
Yes.
the full circle nature. Somebody from Southern California selling out the Hollywood Bowl and coming in to play it, right? That's the whole
Homecoming.
point of it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's all there. Okay, we have summed this thing up to get you to, and I want to run this part by you. For me, this is one of the best shows I've been to. I want to avoid some of the superlatives that I've used in private conversation because I don't feel like arguing with strangers about it. But from the first note to the last note, it was incredible. Keeping in mind, it's also being played with an orchestra. And what was interesting about the orchestra at this show was that if you check orchestra shows or symphony shows, normally the symphony kind of dominates, like those Metallica symphony albums. I don't know if you've ever heard those, but you never lose sight of the fact that there is a symphony playing. But I came here for a Metallica record. I don't want the Metallica record to be classed up. I want the Metallica record maybe to be beefed up. I found that the orchestra in this case was only there as they needed to be and beefed up the sound rather than dominating.
Yeah, your point of sometimes you go to an orchestra show, the orchestra is the main event, and the artist is kind of just there.
Right.
This was clearly the orchestra put the exact right amount of touches to make the album stand out even more.
Right.
Whether it was strings or extra horns, there were certain songs, the first 3 songs, where we looked at each other like, whoa.
What's going on here?
Whoa, they've just added just so much to it in a kind of subtly perfect way.
Yeah, you would forget they were there until it was time to remember that they were there.
Yeah, you'd look on the stage and see, whoa, there's like a 12-piece, 15-piece orchestra.
Right.
When if you're just listening, you're like, well, this is just Malibu, a little bit heightened.
Right. But also starting it with the bird. Like, that is the track that you think of, and you're like, oh, okay, an orchestra would be great for us to have here. So you get into that with the introduction to the orchestra. You get to Heart Don't Stand a Chance after that, which is one of those Anderson Flex on the drums tracks, right? So that's track 2. We're starting there, and it's just like, oh, okay, we really are playing this whole album.
Yes.
And the vibe of the crowd being such that I don't really like it so much when the singer don't sing, man. Like, I paid you to do this. Like, Bill Burr got a routine about when you go to a sandwich place and they hand you the mayonnaise, and you're like, nah, man, you the one that makes sandwiches, right? And so I don't like being asked to make the sandwich. But in this case, I guess it was like a communal experience. We got through that. I could go track by track, right? And we just be here all day and all night and talking about it. But every feature artist showed up.
Yeah, so I have the track list up, but to you said it during the show, is like, I think we're going to get perfect attendance. And your only question mark was Talib Kweli, who does The Dreamer at the end, which is probably one of my favorite songs on the record. So perfect attendance. BJ the Chicago Kid for The Waters, Schoolboy Q for Am I Wrong, Rhapsody for Without You. The Game did not show up, but
I forgot about him.
Sonia Elise did, and Talib Kweli. So it was pretty much perfect attendance. And, the Malibu top to bottom, I thought, was perfect in that, he doesn't have a bad song on that record. And you said it multiple times during the record or during the concert, he's a cheat code.
Yes.
Is because he had no backing track and he's, crushing it on the vocals. He sounded very good, but then he'll walk up from the stage, go to the back, and then proceed to drum while rapping and singing at the elite level.
Right. And when we saying drumming, we're not talking about just getting in a pocket and going. We're talking about some for real drumming. Because there's no superstar drummer now. Right? I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that commands that attention, as a drummer / performer also, right?
And funny enough, I wore my Bernard Purdie.
You did.
Shirt,
you did.
Who's one of the greatest drummers of all time.
Well played.
Yeah.
Well played. That's I told my buddy we were going there. I was like, no. Sean's that guy. And he showed up with a Bernard Purdie t-shirt. And it was like, oh, okay. No, he decided to flex. Okay, cool. But no, he gave us all of that. Vocally, yes, I find that he sounded exactly like he did on the record. No more, no less. The no more part is kind of interesting. The no less part is impressive. The no more part for me was kind of like, oh, okay, but I guess when you're doing a million different things, it stands to reason that's where you would go. Now, I will say this. There are no bad songs on that record, but I went to see that Usher tour, and Usher has a pocket and period of what I think are silly songs. Okay? The Good Kisser, the Love in the Club, and you get to the OMG. I think that these are silly songs.
Sure.
And I think that one thing about being a legacy act is that you don't have to play those silly songs anymore. You can play the songs that you want to play, right? But he still wants to play those silly songs, right? He even playing the white people songs in every clip I see at the Usher concerts. It ain't really no white people in there. Yeah, like, come on, baby, what's going on? So, Silicon Valley is a silly song. It is an interesting and impressive silly song, but it is absolutely a silly song. And I would say that one of the drawbacks of deciding to play a whole album is you are obligated to play the silly songs. It is not a song that did not require talent. It is clever. It is those things. By the way, also very clever and funny concert. Like, his brand of humor translates very well. I am surprised, and I'm not exaggerating here, that we don't like see him do more acting.
No, and he's got actually a movie coming out that he wrote and directed. His son is starring in. His son did come out for a little cameo. So he's clearly trying to dip his toes into it. But yeah, we mentioned it, like the transitions and the sometimes artist speaking sections always get a little too obvious. Like, he did his thing about I forgot what, I'm blanking on the song.
About the Jordans?
The Jordans.
Yeah, it was Carry Me.
Yeah, and he does this long-winded story, but it's funny, it's quirky, it's very much him.
Right.
And every moment he did that in the show was like very genuine and authentic. I never felt like, oh, I can like take a break here. I can go to the bathroom.
No, it worked. It went in that way. Now, after you get through Malibu, you get a performance. And what we did not expect was to get a Dr. Dre performance out of there, because I think Dr. Dre wants to make sure that the youngsters remember who Dr. Dre is, even though I got to tell you, Dr. Dre, that show, we're just younger than you.
Yes.
It is not necessarily a youngster show. However, I did notice, as is the case when Dr. Dre appears in public, I think people make the fair point about the reckoning of Dr. Dre and whether we should be welcome in these spaces. And I am going to be perfectly honest. That is a absolutely 100% fair point that people make, and I don't blame anybody who feels that way about him. I will also say I don't know how many people were at the Hollywood Bowl, but it did not appear that a single one of them had given that stuff a modicum of thought, and that includes me. It was just like, la da 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 da. I don't know if I'm right, I don't know if I'm wrong, but I'm not going to sit up here and lie to you. It banged when that happened.
Coming in, I was like, maybe he comes because he's had such an integral part of Anderson .Paak's career. And like when he did show up, I still felt like a kid. Like we were like, Dr. Dre?
Yeah, look, there's the evocative nature of next episode, and look, that's how it went at the show, right? We'll also make this note about Dr. Dre. It appears that he has a kicking it with the young people jacket. If I'm not mistaken, the same jacket he had on for this performance was the jacket that he wore at the pop out for Kendrick Lamar. And I feel like if he's got to go somewhere where his daughter's friends are going to be, he wears that jacket too.
Yeah, it was funny you mentioned that. I was like, yeah, I actually have seen that jacket everywhere he makes a public appearance.
Yo, that is relatable content, though. That's his good coat.
It's his outfit.
Yeah, that's how I got my good coat, right? Like, this is what it is. How many jackets am I supposed to have? I live in California.
At this point in the show, we're at like the hour mark, let's say. And you look at me and you're like, it's not even 9:15. And you're like, and the show, it's like we've been standing this whole time, and you look at me, you're like, I think he's gonna do another hour, and he proceeded again to do another hour.
Hollywood Bowl has a 11 o'clock curfew, right? Outdoor venue, rich people live around it, so it's 11 o'clock curfew for a noise ordinance. We got through about 10:45, right? And it was a pretty interesting run of. I didn't peep any no worry stuff. You tell me if you noticed that. I don't think we got any of that.
He didn't do any no worry stuff, but like there was a Kaytranada song that I resonated to, and a lot of the young people around our section was like, I can't believe he played this Kaytranada song, and it was like a crowd pleasing bump. So
like I don't love no worries as much as other people, so this for me was a positive. But we got a run. We got Oxnard. I mean, I like Oxnard more than most people. Yes. We got a couple of Oxnard
and he did the
tracks.
best cuts from that song.
Yes, he did. He didn't hit us with other we didn't really want. Got a good run of Ventura. Got some Venice. Corday came out for the joint that Dave got. Cool. That's out right now. That was really Corday can rap his ass off. I think we forget. I can't say we. I be forgetting about that dude sometime, right? Yeah. Also, all-time overachiever.
Yeah, he's done well.
Way to go, little homie. I thought it felt like it was a very soulful show. after you got past Malibu. Like it leaned more into that stuff than the rap, from what I could from what I was thinking.
And the orchestra left at that point.
Yeah. The orchestra did not get paid.
We're not paid for this. But it's his band Free Nationals, who he's been with the entirety of his career, and you can tell they were like, well, we're at the peak of our powers. Let's just show off.
Yes. Having a ball.
They're having so much fun.
Like it was a great, and it was a really fun show in that way.
I was gonna mention before we get to the end, like the Mac Miller tribute was really great. They have obviously a long relationship, and Schoolboy Q was obviously in attendance. You mentioned you interviewed Schoolboy and kind of refuses to talk about that because he meant a lot to him. So that was a really nice moment. And the last, he did do a Silk Sonic song.
He did Smoke It Out the Window.
Yeah,
he did do
which
the Silk
I think
Sonic
hit with all the women in the crowd.
Yes,
and it was like them being like, "Oh, finally a Silk Sonic song."
Well, it raises the question of how many people bought tickets to that show
versus him,
like not knowing him prior to Silk Sonic, because I did not feel like it was that kind of crowd. Right. Who is the person that? Because let me tell you something. I've been to the Silk Sonic show in Vegas, and those are not people coming to see him. No. That is the Anderson crowd. Like we were there,
older people,
right?
Like,
a lot of older people. Like we were there. It was 4 dudes. There was a lot of people there with their girl, obviously, but it was a show that kind of whatever vibe you were going for.
Yeah.
Like it could hit that if you were into him. Like what you hope being in a position like that is that if people are into you, that you attract a room of people who will want to be around each other.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think that in large part, that's what he had. And shout out to him, because I can't imagine the power of looking up to the Hollywood Bowl that's full up all the way to the top.
Completely sold out.
And you did that.
Yeah.
You tell them to go left, they go left.
Yeah.
You tell them to go right, they go right. They did that thing that people love to do, where they tell everybody to turn their lights on their phone. And I was down to like 4%, so I could not participate in that.
Yes.
But I looked around as it was happening, and I was like, oh, wow, this is actually pretty impressive, guys.
And it shows, like I tweeted this, like, I thought we saw an artist at the peak of their powers, regardless of what happens next in his career. Like this version of Anderson .Paak, we saw him at the peak, and it showed because the crowd was very much saying yes, like you said, to everything he wanted them to do.
Yes, I will also make this note. For the 2 days after the show, the only thing I've really been listening to is the Prince live album from '85, which is Prince at the absolute peak of his powers.
You said
that was
that's
the only
him at
thing.
Jordan level.
Yes, that's him. That's him at Jordan in '92, right? Ali in '66. Like that's him. That's the only thing that was, for me, sustained the energy that I was working off of from that show. Like I had to call in the big gun to keep this going, because otherwise it'd have been a letdown. And then we got fireworks.
We all... You, me, your friend Clarence, we're saying we're all agnostic towards fireworks. I've become the age where I'm like, fireworks, they're all the same. I was like, you can't impress me with the fireworks show. This was the greatest fireworks show I've ever seen in my life.
Because it made no sense. Why do we have this fireworks show? And it just kept going on. And it wasn't like the 4th of July fireworks, right? Like it wasn't just like super duper.
No, they brought out like the big gun fireworks.
But it just like it was subtle, and then it just kept going. And then at one point I was like, wow, I wish I'd had my phone out, because the fireworks are certainly about to be over. And no, the fireworks were going. So then I broke my phone out, and the fireworks kept going. And I was like, okay, well, the fireworks at one point stopped. And again, I'm on 3%. So I stopped. No, there are more fireworks to come. They just kept going.
I had talked to other people that I realized afterwards that went to the show, and they were like, that was the best fireworks show I've ever seen. They were like, it was so long, too. It was like 15 minutes.
Homie Jay Snow left to beat the traffic, and I didn't realize till I got home. He sent me a text as he was walking back, because this happens when you do that. And I was like, damn, they playing my song. That's when you decide to make the decision to leave early. You hear what you're missing.
And I don't blame him, because if anyone knows the Hollywood Bowl, the walk out of the Hollywood Bowl is like you're being cattled like sheep, and it's downhill, and it's like a sketchy road that Highland is like, people are flying by. So like, I don't blame him for that, but I'm also like, wow, we got a great fireworks show. And you missed his favorite song.
Tough break. I went to the Crunk Bench show with some dude who was sitting in New York, and the dude that was sitting next to me, he got there 30 minutes before it ended. And I just looked at him and was like, wow, that's a tough break. That's all I had for him. That's a tough
Traffic
break.
must have been bad going up to Queens.
Well, the thing is, that's got a 10 o'clock curfew. And so if you don't think about that curfew, you're like, the concert's not going to end at 10 o'clock. And instead, Buddy called a tough break.
So I want to ask you before we wrap, you mentioned this statement that you're gonna say, but like, is it still stand now that we're 2 days post concert?
I feel like it's one of the 5 or so best shows that I've been to. Or at the very least, it's one of the 5 best times that I've had with the show, right? And so that combines a lot of things. That combines the company, that combines the setting, that combines the ambiance, that combines the atmosphere, that combines the intake, that combines all these different things. But for that night, that was a winner. We showed up at work the next day and we're just like, yo, I'm still pumped.
And it's funny, Greg, who's behind here, he also went to a concert and we were like, you know, I got out late, I didn't sleep that much. And I was like, I felt energized the next morning.
Yes.
And like, that's, I guess, a product of, you know, the serotonin boost, but also like being able to say we saw that.
Yeah. No. That's one of those where I'm like, okay, no, we did that. That's a win.
Yeah.
That's a big win. All right. That is our concert diary with Anderson .Paak live at the Hollywood Bowl. Send us tickets and we'll come to your shit. The NFL is back, which means you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on a couple of players' stats and projections, and you're locked in. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.